Right guys, so question, what is the best V-mount battery for lights? Dunno? Well, Yinchem sent over these new 200 Wh V-lock batteries. So let's test these out and see if they are in fact the best battery for lights. How's it going guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. Right, so now firstly, a quick insight into, I guess, what V-mount batteries or V-lock batteries actually are. Basically, it's like an all-in-one power supply that you can use for basically anything related to filmmaking. And the reason that I love V-lock batteries so much is that it means that I can just charge one battery instead of having to charge, you know, like a battery for my camera, a different battery for my monitor, a different battery for my wireless transmitter, like basically anything that I use, I can just charge one battery and use the one battery for everything. And honestly, this saves so much time and so much hassle because you have to take around one charger, especially when you're traveling and stuff. Just to be able to take one charger rather than every single other charger makes life so much easier. So Yinchem's batteries are an amazing way of powering all your gear off a single source, and they do this really well. So here is the 200 Wh model, but they also come in a 98, 135, 170, and 270 Wh version as well. And they also come with obviously a V-lock mount, but also a gold mount as well. Now, until now, my main V-lock source that I've been using is 99 Wh. So I've got 6 99 Wh V-lock batteries, and I basically use that for everything when I'm making my films and whatnot. But what I've found is that 99 Wh sometimes isn't enough, especially when you're trying to power lights, because say like a 300 Watt light on 2 99 Wh batteries is only gonna last, you know, like 35 to 40 minutes. Whereas with two of these, you're gonna get, you know, like an hour 15 sort of thing, and it will just won't draw them down as much as quick. So now I've been testing these out on my camera rig because that's the main way that I actually use V-lock batteries. And I love that they're not super tall. So some V-lock batteries that you get, they're really tall and they can kind of like, I guess they just sit kind of weird on your camera. I prefer them to be a little bit more slimline. That's why I like kind of like those little mini ones and a little bit longer as well. So instead of making your camera rig tall, it kind of makes it a little bit longer. And this is really good if you're using these for say like DSLRs or mirrorless cameras where the form factor is quite low. However, one thing to note is that they are quite hefty. So these come in at 1,287 grams, which is a decent weight. Now in saying that, one benefit that I actually found to it being a little bit heavier is that when I'm actually putting it on the back of my rig, it actually balances everything out a little bit better. So you know what our mini batteries just, I think they're about like 600, 800 grams, something like that. They don't weigh that much. Whereas this, because it weighs a bit more, it kind of distributes the weight a little bit better. And we actually put them on Jason's rig as well. And literally before I put this on his rig, he said to me that his rig basically doesn't really balance properly with the handle. And as soon as we put this on, it actually balanced it out perfectly, which is just like a happy coincidence. So even though these do weigh a bit more, there is actually kind of like some benefits to having that extra weight as well. Now in terms of ports, Yinchem has provided one D-tap and one USB type A, which is a little bit of a bummer. I would prefer it to have two D-tap ports because a lot of the time, like, I guess you can get away with two at a minimum, like powering like your camera and maybe like a monitor or something. But one kind of is hard to run off. It means that you'd have to get a D-tap splitter, which aren't that expensive. It's just kind of another thing you have to get. But yeah, I would have loved it if they had two D-tap ports and the single USB. That would have been awesome. You also have the BP plate on the bottom as well. So if you're putting this into like a power distribution plate or something, which is something that I actually use, then you can take all your power from this and you don't actually really need the ports on the actual battery itself. And this is the actual power distribution plate that I use for my cinema setup, which basically allows me to power all my accessories via DC cable. So you just basically clip this in, it powers this plate here, and then you just choose the kind of like voltage output you want, and then just assign that to whatever accessory you need. And real quick guys, if you are enjoying this video, then consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It really helps push my channel out and this video out to other people in the community, and just kind of like meet new people and grow this community as a whole. Now having a USB type A port directly on the battery itself is super handy because there's always times on set where people's phone dies, or you know, your iPad using dies, or just any kind of device dies and you need to kind of like power it. So basically you can just grab one of these batteries, plug it into this, and you can just start charging it straight away. But also a lot of accessories now, especially like wireless transmitters and sometimes monitors now as well, can actually be powered via USB-C cables. So you can plug directly into this and power that as well. This will output 5 volts at 2.1 amp max. And then for your D-tap port, this can output 10 amp at 14.4 volts. And then your BP on the bottom can output 15 amps at 14.4 volts. Now, like I was saying, if you pair two of these together on, say, like a 300-watt light, like something like the Nanlite Forza 300B, then basically you're gonna get over an hour of runtime at 100% brightness, and it's a fully portable setup, which is super duper cool. And this is often my go-to setup when I'm on location, because I don't really want to have to try find, run cables and find power points. And especially if you're just kind of doing like a quick run and gun thing where you don't have a lot of time, being able to basically like, say, chuck these on a portable light on a rolling C-stand and just being able to roll it around the house or roll it around location makes things so quick and easy. And again, like over an hour of runtime on this, basically if you turn it off between kind of like takes and stuff, you're about to get a ton of time shooting with these on a super portable setup. Plus, this is also a 100% silent power source. So when you're running a generator or something on site, obviously you're gonna produce a lot of noise. Whereas obviously it's a battery, so you just plug it in, you don't have to worry about any noise apart from maybe like your fixtures and stuff making noise from the fan. But this is a way better solution. Now, oftentimes when we're shooting commercials or films, we have to mount lights in somewhat awkward positions, and it's kind of like once you get it up there, we kind of have app control now for lights, so that makes it a lot easier to control. We don't really need to touch the fixture after it's up there. So by having a bigger power source like a 200-watt-hour over a 99-watt-hour, it just means that you're basically doubling the amount of time that it can stay up there before you have to take it down. And especially if you're using something like like a 50-watt light or something, like this will last up to 4 hours at 100% sort of thing. So being able to do that and just mount up there and just have to kind of like forget about it, not have to worry about changing it super duper often, is so handy. On the side of the battery, it has a 5 LED battery level display, which will give you a quick idea of how much charge each battery actually has. Now, in terms of being the best V-mount battery for lights, I think it's pretty close to being one of the best capacities, because you can run a ton of different things off this. Although like some bigger, like say like a 300-watt or a 720-watt will require probably two of these, so it means you have to like obviously buy two of them. But a lot of your small ones, like like a Forza 60 or a Forza 150 something, can run off one of these, and you'll get a ton of output and a ton of time just running off one battery, which is super duper cool. So I guess like in terms of like a price to value to output ratio, I think the 200-watt-hour V-mount is a really good middle place, because it's not too big that it's kind of awkward and bulky to carry around, and it's not too little that it just doesn't really give you enough output to do anything with it. Now, the big downside of something like this 200-watt-hour battery, even though it's really good and it gives you a lot of power, you can't travel with it. You can't fly with them on planes. So in Australia, we are limited to under 100 watt hours per battery, which means that you can't actually fly with these. And that is actually the main reason why I started getting 99-watt-hour batteries, so then I could actually take them with me if I was traveling on a plane. But now I've actually got these and I've started using them, I'm seeing the benefits of having bigger capacity batteries, because obviously like a 9-watt-hour on my cinema rig, kind of rigged up, lasts me maybe like 3 hours sort of thing, maybe a little bit more. Whereas like one of these should basically last me all day, which is super duper cool. And I think that like 9-watt-hours is a good place to start if you are going to be traveling a lot. But if you don't need that lower capacity, just going straight to something like a 200, even like a 270, and just having like basically one battery that'll last you an entire shoot day is super handy. Now, as for price, these go for $399 US, which like if you're new to V-Log batteries and you're just kind of like comparing it to normal batteries to your camera, you got to think like, wow, that is very expensive for a battery. But the cool thing about it is that this replaces everything. So if you think about like having to buy a battery for your camera and your lights and your monitor and your wireless transmit and all that, and you keep adding that up, like it gets very expensive. Whereas if you just buy one of these and it can basically power everything, it makes it so much easier. And that's honestly, I don't use any other batteries anymore. I just use V-Log batteries because I've realized how efficient it is and how much easier it is to prep for a day, or even after say like a long shoot. If you shoot like a 10-12 hour day and you're having to recharge individual batteries overnight and stuff, like it just disrupts your sleep and kind of like your prep for the next day. Whereas if you have these, you just kind of chuck them on charge and then you just leave them and then it's ready to go the next day. But honestly, like, I would absolutely love to know your thoughts below. Do you use V-Log batteries? Do you use them for lights? Do you use them for your camera? Let me know what you use down below, and what kind of like capacity do you use? What you think is the best capacity V-mount battery on the market? But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Yinchem 200-watt-hour V-Log battery. If you did, then consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to find out any more about this, I'll leave some links down below. Otherwise, stay creative and just be you. Have fun.